Here's the functional challenge. Here's what the papers offer as a substitute for the moral challenge that first appeared in Zoroastrianism, in the concept of the God of light and the God of darkness, and choose sides, which we picked up through Judaism, and which in medieval Christianity, and that's synonymous with fundamentalist Christianity, you have as the challenge of God and the devil, the alternate destination of heaven and hell. This challenge is just as real, but I don't get sick at my stomach when I read it, You got a problem here. They've handicapped spirit out here in the seven super universes. By handicapping spirit, I mean they've established a situation in which energy matter starts out as dominant. Spirit cannot control energy matter. It doesn't reach it at any point. Spirit isn't even in space, is it? It's almost like being in two different universes. All throughout these papers, we're taught that the thing that can dominate energy matter is mind. All right, let's see what happens if mind dominates energy matter without spirit coordination. We get into the kind of a bind that we are in right now here on Earth. Man's mind is beginning to unlock some important secrets of nature. But the minds that are doing the unlocking are not God-knowing minds, are they? So what we're face to face with is not utopia, but fear. Here we have mind dominating energy matter, but it's not subordinating itself to spirit. So all of our scientific discoveries increase our apprehensions. You ever stop and think of what a temporary condition Los Angeles might be? I look at Chicago. I was born there. I love that dirty city. I managed to stay mostly on the lake shore where it isn't so dirty. It's the white meat of Chicago. And I've looked out of my office many times at Michigan Avenue, north and south, and I've said to myself, golly, we've been 125 years building this city, and the whole thing could go up in smoke in 125 seconds. This is for real. This is not science fiction. It's only when you have a personality that you've got freedom of choice, so that the choosing personality can move in two directions at the same time. One, use mind to dominate matter, and at the same time stabilize mind by subordinating it to spirit. And it's my humble opinion that human beings on this world will successively build civilizations and will successively smash them until human beings learn that subtle trick. No civilization, I think, will be permanent which does not have a religious motif, which at minimum contains the gospel of Jesus. And I offer our present day dilemma as a good example of how loused up we can get. Who was it once said, you couldn't build modern civilization on the teachings of Jesus, and they're quite right, but you could build a darn sight better one. If I sound a little pessimistic, forgive me, but I've just been carefully studying. I got into this in my reading. The last 300 years of the Roman Empire in the West. I'm reading it in detail. I got about yay much book on just those 300 years and how hard those Romans fought. And you can just see the old tide rising on them, generation by generation. And they went down slugging hard. They didn't give up easy. Well, I sound like Jeremiah, don't I? In the 20th century, though, we don't have any miry pits in Pasadena. They conclude with a very interesting differentiation between fact and truth. When they say mind, matter, and spirit are equally real, but they are not of equal value to personality in the attainment of divinity. Consciousness of divinity is a progressive spiritual experience. And so, your great figure of speech, the material as the shadow of the more real spirit substance, does have a philosophic significance. I think some of the best philosophy in these papers is in the tail end of paper 12. The front end is geographic, the tail end philosophical, and they introduce some very important themes. How about a coffee break? Eventually sprout into the whole master universe. And how can you understand that? How can you comprehend a seed until it's planted and you see how it flowers? And some of these seeds are not going to be planted in the present universe age. This is my thinking. I touch base many, many times in the papers, but I am responsible for these conclusions. This is no divine counselor writing. So get your salt shaker out while you read it and salt each page with skepticism. I like it because it explains a lot to me. But one of the things we did was to examine what appears to be relative size. And I won't give you my argument. You can read it. I just take the light years they give in the papers and work out some proportions. If we could symbolize the grand universe, now that's what this book is about, the grand universe, the seven super universes in Havana. If we could symbolize that as a tennis ball for size, I know it's a donut, but it's easier for me to refer to spheres than it is to concentric donuts. I want a tennis ball of about 2 inches in diameter. If you will float that tennis ball in a small bedroom, 8 cubic feet, you are thinking of what seems to be the space relationship of the grand universe to the first outer space level. It's a lot bigger, isn't it? Now float the bedroom in a cubic city block. And you got the second outer space level. Float the cubic city block in what I referred to as cubic Chicago. It's a 16-mile cube. You got the third outer space level. And now float a cubic city in the Earth's moon, which is undersized. Oh, I should have a space body half again as big. Now you have the fourth outer space level. That's for the size of the master universe. And we also observed that each one of these units, starting with Havana, is associated with the universe age. We're in the second universe age. Now, these 21 spheres embrace the potentials of the entire master universe in seed form. And this means that these worlds are not going to be really comprehensible until the whole master universe has appeared, right? For example, where would you expect to find creator suns? On Vice Charrington. But they aren't in this universe age. They're on Sonarrington. But they've got a secret college on Vice Charrington. Why are the universe power directors based on Spiritington, the world of the Father and the Spirit? Father have anything to do with their origin? No. But the paper says in the present universe age, he has something to do with their direction. Citizenship or residence on these worlds apparently is going to shift as the successive universe ages witness the unfolding of the creative potentials in the master universe. Yes. Page 148, paragraph 5. He goes on to say there are many similar problems that will perplex you, nor can you successfully reason out these questions. You know so little. And if you knew more about the Father's worlds, you would simply encounter more difficulties until you knew all about them. But they point out that these worlds are worlds of specialized relationship. The gods make no secret of themselves. In other words, you understand all of the Father that you can. But the gods do not share with all creatures certain intimacies which they maintain with other orders. I like that. We'll never understand how a paradise son bestows himself. But the author of this paper says he will never understand how a human being evolves a soul and fuses with a thought adjuster. And that's something that will be crystal clear to us because we will have lived through it. But he says, for some reason, once you understand it, you either keep the secret because you've been told to, or you keep the secret because you can't disclose it. The worlds of the sun are extremely interesting because we know nothing about them. People don't live there. Living beings reside there, but they're not persons. And that has something to do with the master universe. The worlds of the spirit, I think, must be just fascinating. You know how big Arvantan is? Well, the world number 7 in the third circuit of Paradise satellites, the name of that world is Arvantan. The super universe was named after it. Here's where they keep things straight for a whole super universe. And you know, the perfecter of wisdom that writes this paper says, to me, these executive worlds are the most interesting and intriguing spots outside of Paradise. In no other place in the wide universe can one observe such varied activities involving so many different orders of living beings, having to do with operations on so many diverse levels, occupations at once material, intellectual, and spiritual. Nowhere else can I observe such an amazing interassociation of personality performances on all 7 levels of universe reality, and I'm always stimulated by the activities of those who well know how to do their work and who so thoroughly enjoy doing it. They got a bunch of pros up there. Page 321. Paragraph 2 and 3 discusses the function of the Supreme Center Supervisors. You'll recall that the 7 Supreme Power Directors are based on peripheral paradise, each in association with the Master Spirit of Origin. There are 7 Supreme Center Supervisors. They're the senior power centers, and they're based on these worlds of the Infinite Spirit, sometimes called the worlds of the Supreme Executives. Cross-reference number 2. Page 265. The entire section that starts at the top of that page. Just say page 265, section 1. The Universe Circuit Supervisors. Now this is the second group of the higher personalities of the Infinite Spirit. And these folks have to do with all circuits which can be manipulated by creatures and which are not manipulated by the power directors. And the Supreme Circuit Supervisors are based on these same 7 worlds. And the liaison between a Supreme Circuit Supervisor and the first order of the power centers based there effects a complete coordination of all circuits to the 7 super-universes. Everything crosses over at this point. I'll tell you what I think of. Again, I think in terms of organic wholes. I think of this as analogous to the great neural crossover in the medulla of the brain. Your left hemisphere controls the right side of the body, and vice versa. And every neural pattern, every nerve, makes a big crossover right back here in the base of the brain, and that produces coordination. I think of this circuit tie-up on the worlds of the infinite spirit as somewhat analogous to the crossover of the human nervous system. It produces super-universe coordination. The third cross-reference should be page 198, section 1, the 7 Supreme Executives. There are 7 of these, and they're resident on these worlds. What's the relationship between the Supreme Executive of Orvantan and the 3 Ancients of Days? Well, I think of it in many ways as the relationship between the chairman of the board and the triune president. The 3 Ancients of Days are in active supervision of Orvantan, but they're accountable to this Supreme Executive, who you might say is the executive deputy of the Master Spirit of Orvantan. Paper 14 is, as many of these papers are, it's really written in 2 sections. Section 1 and Section 2 continues the physical story. We're on page 152. We're going to find this was true of the paper on paradise, of the paper on the universe of universes. We'll find this to be true of the next paper on the 7 super universes. The first part of the paper is physical. The last part is a discussion of something other than physical. But to get a picture of Havona, you read the first 2 sections. And remember, Havona is made of material stuff, but not the same material stuff that we call matter. Our matter, the papers describe as gravita. Havona matter is triata. It's differently organized. Starting with section 3, you have a description of what goes on in Havona. This is analogous to the first half of the paper on paradise, what goes on paradise, where people are concerned. I love that first statement. Concerning the government of the central universe, there is none. Page 221, Havona natives. Page 346, Havona natives in the core of the finality. Page 288, for the rest of the paper, which is 288 to 296. That's the story of the tertiary supernafaim, who function generally in Havona, and the story of the secondary supernafaim, which gives the story of our progress circuit by circuit through Havona. You should read 269 to the end of the paper. Graduate guides, because a graduate guide goes with us all the way through Havona. 273 is the last reference. With this graduate guide is a Havona servitle. And if you put all this together, you've got the story of Havona as it relates to us. Let's look at page 156, the bottom of the page. Consider that inventory of life in Havona. These Havona natives are material beings, at least on the outer circuits. Material in the triada sense, you know. But read down that list. There's an awful lot going on in Havona that isn't described in this paper on Havona, and which I don't think will even register on our sensory mechanism when we go through Havona. Let's go back to page 86, and incidentally, that's a good cross-reference for Havona. Next to the last paragraph. It says the Eternal Son bestowed himself 7 times, once on each of the circuits of Havona. And on page 87, at the top of the page, it says, we can't tell you anything about this. These bestowals were transcendental. And on the second paragraph, they point out that it took a Creator Son following the Eternal Son to portray what the Eternal Son had done in Havona. These were the 7 bestowals of the original Michael. He's different from any other Michael. He never bestowed himself out in time and space. But what he did was, he revealed what the Eternal Son had done. Well, if what the Eternal Son had done was transcendental, this was a finite translation of a transcendental episode. I don't think we're going to understand the bestowals of the Eternal Son when we get to Havona. I think we will understand the Michael translation of the bestowals of the Eternal Son. I think most of what this paper is talking about deals with the first 3 levels of Havona life. I don't think it touches on the last 4 levels. I think all 7 of these levels of existence are existent on all 7 circuits. But I don't think we'll know it, Helena. Here, we live on this world, and we're cognizant of the physical level of reality on this world. But there's much that's going on this world of a super-physical nature. For example, our Midway cousins are evolving a Midwayer civilization on this world, which has cultural values. They're not all alike. I think they make physical discoveries. I think they achieve artistic triumphs. This is an evolutionary civilization indigenous to this planet. And it's a very important civilization. Sometime, when human civilization achieves the status of light and life, the Midwayer civilization will flow into it. Example, Part 4 in this book, the Jesus Papers, represents the midwares sharing with us something which they have retained, which we didn't know about. But we don't know anything about this midware civilization, do we? And then there are higher orders of beings on this planet. I think the same thing is going to be true when we go through Havona. We're going to see, we're going to perceive many things. But I think there's a great deal more going on there that won't even register on us. If you'll turn to page 160, the perfecter of wisdom hedges a little bit. He roughly groups things that go on in Havona on 3 levels. And he says, it is possible that the central universe serves many purposes which are not revealed to me. You see, what we've got here is a universe that, at least in part, expresses absolute quality of divinity. And then he goes on, this merits some study. What does Havona mean to 7 different orders of intelligence? The Father, the Son, the Spirit. What does Havona mean to the Supreme Being? What does Havona mean to the Creator Sons? What does Havona mean to their creative consorts? And what does Havona mean to evolutionary mortals? I love that statement at the top of page 163. Paradise is the home, and Havona the workshop and playground of the finalators. I'm glad they put playground in there along with workshop. Because, you know, if they ever evolve me beyond the point where I get a kick out of having a good time, it won't be me anymore. I think work is valuable. It's real fun. One of the most important functions of work is that it offers a contrast to play. And if all you did was play wouldn't be fun anymore, would it? They point out that Havona works very beautifully in relation to a finite scheme of ascension. They point out that it has capacity to serve equally well if ascenders ever attempt to approach God on the second level of reality, on the absentite level, in the last sentence. And we are inclined to the opinion that the potentials of eternal Havona are really unlimited, that the central universe has eternal capacity to serve as an experiential training universe for all past, present, or future types of created beings. Well, if the potentials of Havona are unlimited, it's a cinch that they won't all be expressed in the present universe age, nor will they all be discernible to us as we traverse it in the present universe age. The first universe age, I think, ended when the 21 Ancients of Days were created. They tell us that's the first event in recorded history. And in principle, this began the 7 super-universes. And we are in the second universe age. I think our universe age will end when the 7 super-universes are settled in light and life, which event they think will witness the completion of the growth of the Supreme and his emergence, the emergence of the Supreme as a contactable and knowable experiential deity. That will end, I think, the present universe age, and I deduce will begin the next one. We know that the plans for the 7 super-universes project 7 trillion inhabited worlds. And I would deduce that 5 1/3 trillion worlds are now inhabited. So we've got 1 2/3 trillion worlds on which life has yet to evolve, maybe even be planted. It's my very considered opinion that historians will sometime describe the 20th century as the later stages of barbarism. I do not believe we have achieved what a more sophisticated and mature culture will deem to be civilization. I think that they will describe the mid-20th century as the beginning of the breakthrough to the development of the tools of civilization. I think atomic energy is I get respect for that. This is the tool of a fairly high civilization. But morally, ethically, and religiously, I rate us in the later days of barbarism. And if you would like me to buttress this, let me read you the indictment of Western civilization from the Urantia book. Here is their description of Western civilization. 2086, next to the last paragraph. A society which staggers under the guilt of tolerating science without idealism, politics without principles, wealth without work, pleasure without restraint, knowledge without character, power without conscience, and industry without morality.
Going back to Rome.
Fourth paragraph.
This is a real indictment. No, it's my very considered opinion that we are living in the later days of barbarism. Please remember, in the 12th century A.D., which we call the Middle Ages, the inhabitants of Western Europe referred to themselves as moderns. This was the modern age. Each generation of living men suffers from that conceit. I think the world has evolved civilized people. I think individual human beings have become civilized. But I do not believe this world has yet seen a really civilized society.
It's only produced the yeast.
Right. 7 dissimilar reflective spirits are stationed at the capital of every superuniverse. And they must be rather peculiar beings, because even the ancients of days can't do business with them. So each of these reflective spirits creates an image aid, a reflective image aid. And these beings are non-volitional beings. They're images. The ancients of days can do business with these image aids, who must intervene between even Trinity origin beings and these reflective spirits. And when the 3 ancients of days parade the 7 image aids on Uversa, they are looking at the 7 master spirits on Paradise. They know exactly the attitude of these 7 master spirits. This is one way in which, from their midpoint in the cosmos, they can look both ways. The ancients of days can't move, at least for the present universe age. They don't have to move. All of the intelligence circuits necessary converge on the super-universe capitals. Now, I made the statement that the ancients of days can look both ways, which means know both ways. But so far, we've only seen how they look in. Now, we need to cross-reference some things. Wherever you're putting in your cross-references on reflectivity, add this one. 307. Section 4. Read the story of reflectivity as told in the last paper on the infinite spirit. I read about Majeston, I'd read about the reflective spirits and the reflective image aids. And then I'd come over here and read the story of the primary Sekanophim, because these are the angelic children of the reflective spirits, and they embody reflective power. And they serve the Ancients of Days. The primary Sekanophim of assignment to the Ancients of Days are living mirrors in the service of these triune rulers. Think what it means in the economy of the super-universe to be able to turn, as it were, to a living mirror, and therein to see and therewith to hear the certain responses of another being 1,000 or 100,000 light years distant, and to do all this instantly and unerringly. And as they point out, this evidence is unimpeachable because it's given unconsciously. The higher orders of beings can tell when they're being reflected, but they can't tell what's being reflected. And if you can get unconscious testimony, it's free from bias, isn't it? All right, who do they reflect? There are 7 groups of these primary Sekanophim. Group 1 is reflective of the conjoint actor. Group 2 of the 7 master spirits. You might say, why? You already got your image aids. But this is a collective portraiture of the master spirits, not an individual portraiture. Group 3, the creator sons. They can find out what any creator son is thinking about. Group 4, the angelic hosts. 5, broadcast receivers. 6, transporters. 7 of the Reserve Corps. Listen, I think there are a lot more reflective spirits than that who are primary Sekanophim. I think here is a good example of where these papers give us a sampling of a group. I don't think they've told us all about all of the primary Sekanophim. I shouldn't be surprised, but what there were 49 different kinds of primary Sekanophim able to reflectivate selectively. But they've told us enough about the primary Sekanophim to give us a feeling. The whole story of the Sekanophim, primary, secondary, and tertiary, is in measure the story of reflectivity. They're information gatherers. They are information and propaganda disseminators, and they operate by reflectivity. You should cross-reference also page 1272, which discusses reflectivity, the master spirits and the reflective spirits, somewhat more directly in relation to the Supreme Being. Page 1272. Consider on page 275 the origin of the universal conciliators. You'll recall that in the preceding section it discusses the origin of the Havona servitals. And these servitals are the joint creation of the 7 supreme power directors and of the 7 master spirits, which represents the first union of physical-like creators with spiritual-like creators. And thereby hangs the tale of the Mendelian law of inheritance. And we'll just put that on the table and come right back to it when we finish considering this thing from the standpoint of reflectivity. Now, every time the 7 master spirits participate in the creation of servitals, the reflective spirits are involved because they reflect these master spirits. Let's say that master spirit number 1 participates in the creation of Havona servitals. Then every reflective spirit of the first order, 1 on each super-universe capital, will produce just as many universal conciliators as there were servitals produced in Havona, which means 7 times as many in the overall. The same thing applies with each of the other master spirits. Yes. So let's just consider our Vantan. We've got 7 different kinds of reflective spirits in our Vantan on Uversa, each reflecting a different natured master spirit. Sooner or later, in the course of time, we're going to get 7 basically different types of universal conciliators in our Vantan, aren't we? Does this follow? Some will be like master spirit number 1, others will be like master spirit number 4, others like master spirit number 7. We get 7 genetically different types of conciliators based on the 7 master spirits. And they work and they serve in our Vantan. These 7 different types of conciliators all come under the permanent influence of master spirit number 7. Here you have an interesting interaction of heredity and environment. So they are 7 different types of conciliators, but they all have a 7th order environment. And since this is happening in each of the other 6 super-universes, what is finally evolved is 49 different types of conciliators. And the papers have this to say. Page 275, paragraph 4. The effect of such an environment upon evolutionary growth is so profound that, in their post-super-universe careers, the conciliators collectively manifest 49 experiential viewpoints or insights, each angular, hence incomplete, but all mutually compensatory, and together tending to encompass the circle of supremacy. We come down the line, we've talked about the reflective image aids. The circuit spirits coordinate circuit activity in Havona, as the Eternals of Days coordinate activity on the individual planets. These circuit spirits are not persons, and they give rise to adjutant mind of a 12-fold nature, which is evidently the mind of Havona natives. And while the circuit spirits aren't personal, they're still capable of functioning as the creators of the very personal tertiary superlative, who function generally in Havona. The last 2 groups, the local universe creative spirits and the adjutant mind spirits, function on the local universe level. Here is the only place in the Urantia book that you find a specific chronological delineation of the career of a creative spirit.